them to the table to let them know who they are. Many gave all their lives in the struggle that we could shoulder on top of their scars.
We've got to reach the lost with but one at a time. We've got to let them
Know that we care. And when they fall,
lend a helping hand
to pick them up and teach them how to love themselves. Respect, 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 respect yourself.
Respect yourself. So many answers they can't find. We act as though it is a crime.
Reaching the borders of your mind.
And with our children spend some time.
Those with no hope,
We must bring them to the table to let them know who they are. Many gave all their lives in the struggle that we could shoulder on top of their scars.
We've got to reach the lost if but one at a time.
One at a time.
know that we care.
Know that we care.
Helping hand to pick them up.
And teach them how to love themselves. Respect, 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 respect yourself. So many babies, they think their lives don't matter. They say it don't matter.
Oh, it seems success is so high up the ladder.
Listen, you can't rebuild. For you, we will find help. Ooh, first of all, you gotta respect yourself. Ooh, my,
That's all you gotta do, my brother. I'm asking you.
respect. You got to do it every day. Oh, you must do it. You must respect. Oh, my, and everyone else. We've gotta do yourself, everyone else. Respect, show it every day, in every way. Ah, you gotta do it. You must respect. Respect yourself. Now you're gonna do it. Respect yourself. Respect yourself.
tell the world that he saves.
He saves.
And I'm not ashamed to tell the world that he's real.
He's real.
Tell it everywhere I go. Tell it everywhere I be. I'm not ashamed to tell it.
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 I'm not ashamed, no,
I'm
no.
not ashamed, not ashamed, no.
Come on and help me, Paul.
I'm not ashamed to tell the world that he saved.
He saves.
Said I'm not ashamed to tell the world that he's real.
He's real.
Telling everywhere I go. I'm gonna tell it everywhere I be. I'm not ashamed to tell it.
I'm not ashamed to tell it.
I'm not ashamed to tell it.
I'm not ashamed to
Oh
tell
no,
it.
I'm not ashamed. Hey.
When I think of the goodness of Jesus and all that he's done for me, my soul
It's so happy.
And I can't go in peace. I'm not ashamed.
Not ashamed to tell it.
I'm not ashamed.
Connecting the community through gospel. The new 107.9 FM, W300EB, Macon, and WDDO 980 AM, Perry, Macon.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of the Glory 980 AM, the Glory Media Group, LLC, WDDO AM, its staff, management, or advertisers, but are the views and opinions of the participants of the broadcast.
Mother Georgia, she's back on live, the historic 980 WDDO. All of a sudden, let's go live into the studio with our host, Brenda Sutton.
And hello.
Hello.
You were just running. I was like, oh my goodness. I really hope that they get in here because I'm like, that ain't like you. You know, now Johnny always late.
Right.
Johnny is late because Johnny is late, you know.
Right.
Hey, Dot, how you doing?
The door again late.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just was outside finishing up a conversation, but I was gonna be on here as soon as that camera came on. I was gonna be here.
I'm so glad. I am
To
so.
close the door.
Oh, I don't know why. I just,
That was my fault. I left it open. when I came
you know
in.
what though? I want to know what's the purpose of closing the door anyway. I really don't know. Maybe it ain't like we got all this air here.
I know.
They got the fans going and everything.
Yeah.
How was your weekend?
You know what? Oh, and I have something in the car for you.
Oh, you
I have
got my
some
soap.
I do.
I'd like to give shout outs and credit to people because just because that's we really need to celebrate people when they're doing a good job.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said before, there are a lot of women who use Naturalista products. I mean, there's a lot of women,
Mm-hmm.
but there are a lot of men too.
Oh.
But that's what I'm
Mhm.
saying, that Henry uses it,
Mhm.
Carl Jr. uses it, and I know it's some men out there with some crusty feet. I mean, I already know. I mean, they feet like toe all the way up. Them toenails is like brown and stuff like that. I mean, they're really pretty bad. They don't like
Everybody got that uncle with that one black toenail.
I know it.
Oh, I can hear Johnny coming.
Child, he in there
So-
stomping with them cowboy boots and
Oh
no, he got on
Oh,
sneakers
we see his
again.
knees.
Again, this is like 2 days. Looking like 2
Three.
days in a
No,
row.
this 3 weeks in a row.
Yeah, he come in and he's got on a t-shirt, ladies. I don't know what to say about
Look,
Johnny.
I don't blame Johnny. It's too hot out there. Jeans and boots and button-down shirt with chaps and a hat.
Giddy up, let's go.
All right.
But I don't blame Johnny. Johnny is nice and cool. He got his t-shirt on, his shorts on. It's too hot out there.
I had already warned the listeners that when I arrived, you all would be ragging me, so nothing.
I didn't rag you. I said I think you're dressed appropriately.
You
I
have
really do.
never seen me with chaps.
I mean,
But the cowboy boots, though, and then he wears these black cowboy boots with a little strip of snake skin in the middle. Y'all have
That's
seen
not
that.
what it is.
What is it?
They're stingray.
Oh
oh,
wow,
he fancy with the pinky up.
Look at, and he
No,
correcting me.
I don't do pinky up.
Oh, you don't? You ain't that fancy?
Now this is when you can truly call me a chauvinist.
Oh.
There's nothing girly about me.
You know what?
What, the pinky up, that don't mean girly.
It
That's
does.
fancy. No, it don't.
No,
Well,
that's
and
Fancy
there-
is like the tea.
Okay,
You know,
well
like
then
the fancy.
I don't drink my tea with my pinky up.
Oh, that's what fancy people do.
Well,
They
I
drink it with their
don't.
pinky up.
Well, I
right,
don't.
right. If you are listening, out there, I need for y'all to hit us in the comment
I drink
section
mine out of a cup.
with a scroll.
I just grabbed the whole cup and burned my fingers.
I just need y'all to hit me in the comment section and say like or something, or hey, how you doing? Y'all, they must be out of town or something.
Well, it's back to school, so you got a
It
lot of
is.
open houses this evening. People are getting ready, getting their kids' haircuts and hairdos and getting ready for back to school tomorrow.
I got Denver's hair done. My little friend Shayla did her hair, and she put like little hearts and stuff, and it's like uber cute.
Yeah, the men of
Aw.
my church we're going to report at 7:45 a.m. to Ingram Pie.
Mhm.
It's a school that our church adopted, and matter of fact, members of our church were there at 11 a.m. today
Mhm.
to pray
Hey, Reggie.
with the church. So yeah, schools, that process is back rolling again.
So you guys are going to be at Ingram Pie in the morning, and y'all are going to do like a
We're
prayer
going to greet
over
the kids when they come in,
Mhm.
the men of the church.
I think that's great.
nice.
And and what I really hope is that this is a continuum, because
Well, they've been doing it. We've been doing it from Lizzie Chapel for several years now.
I mean, but just on a regular, is it just the beginning of school?
No,
Hey,
no.
Matthew.
Hey,
No,
Matthew.
No, we're involved with the school throughout the year.
And I just think that the kids need to see men, real men that are out there that care about them, so they have somebody to emulate.
Yeah,
and-
ones
and-
that wear cowboy boots and blue jeans in the hot weather.
Johnny, I'm all right with that, because they really do need to have that. I mean, some of
But
these
Johnny,
kids.
I be you got to be burning up in that. You don't be hot
I don't.
sometimes.
I
Well,
don't.
that's because you're used to wearing it, because you
Yeah.
wear it all
Well,
the time.
well, actually, they're protective gear.
Mhm.
Like I wear long sleeve shirts most of the time during the summertime
Mhm.
because I found that I'm cooler with the sun not being directly on my skin.
Mhm.
And I kind of picked that up from when I used to watch all the movies from Africa, or with the ones in the desert. I used to
Yeah.
notice that they were all covered up. None of them were running around with their skin exposed directly to the sun.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of, then I said, well, you know what? That kind
I
of makes
have
sense
heard
to
that.
me.
Now, I've heard that a few times, that I've heard people say that they stay cooler when when their skin is completely covered.
Yeah, when the sun is not directly on your skin,
Mhm.
Well, that is interesting. I went to Denver. Y'all, for those listening audience, we're grandparents raising our granddaughter, and I went to school on open house. I went up there like 3:30 cars was every, and that was a good thing. The parents was up there, but it was like jam, packed.
And speaking of Denver, the first thing she said when I walked in was, I didn't do anything. So I guess that leaves you two to be the ones who locked me out the door.
Well,
no, that was an accident. I didn't know. I just opened the
Oh,
door
so
and closed
it was Emily.
It was
The-
me.
The
I didn't do it on
engineer,
purpose.
the engineer immediately said it was Emily.
Oh, really? It was. I mean, I was the last one in, so yeah. But I didn't.
But Denver cleared her name.
Denver cleared her name. Denver like, I ain't do it.
I ain't do it.
I ain't do it. I don't know who did it, but I ain't do
I don't
it.
know how I locked the door. All I did was open it and close it.
You know what though?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but I was here really, really early because
And which is certainly an anomaly.
Right. She
know,
wasn't here that early.
I was here like at 5 o'clock.
But who was here when you pulled in?
She didn't notice you.
I really didn't. I didn't notice you.
I just told you.
Brenda, you literally pulled up right next in the parking space next to me.
You know my eyes.
And I was
are
sitting
bad.
in my car.
No,
You know my
she's-
eyes are bad.
Her focus is monolithic. She's
I'm
just
always
straight
here
ahead.
early on Mondays because I come into Macon and try to handle whatever,
Well, she does. She's
business
always
stuff.
here. But I want to say, didn't you go someplace this weekend to do your show?
To the new Black Wall Street, which is in Stonecrest, Georgia. It is a mall.
Hey, Ricky,
that,
how
Hey,
you
Ricky.
doing?
Hey, what's up, Rick? It's a mall that every tenant there is African American, and they have so much Afrocentristic
Oh, I like that word,
items
Afrocentricity.
there. It is, and the feel of it is different. Everybody should go. I really think it's a place that the school system should take the kids on a field trip to go and see it, because there's so much history, like the different aisles in the mall. They're named, that like streets. They're named after famous people, like A.G. Gaston, who was the first black millionaire in this country. He was from Birmingham, Alabama, and worked in the coal mines, and his story is super interesting. One of the name of the streets is Madam C.J. Walker, and that kind of thing. And they lend, and they give you history about these people. It's different, and it's amazing. There is a concert hall inside that mall. And then there's also a club called the Pink Lion Jazz Club, which the HOLINGSHED band appeared, and we had a good time. A lot of the people that work in that mall are affiliated in the management, affiliated with Tyler Perry and
That's
and the
awesome.
like.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we've played there before, and it was, and I've been there before. Johnny is right. It is
It's a
nice
feeling,
spot.
man.
It's really nice. It's clean. It's just a nice spot. I think if you haven't gone, you definitely should try it out. It is quite a trek to get up there. It took us right at 2 hours to get there. Give or take traffic, it may take you a little more, a little less.
Well, actually, if you go at the right time of day,
Right. Yeah.
it's like an hour. Google says it's an hour and 32 minutes.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
I need
but
to. I
we
need
went.
to go.
It took us a little over 2 hours to get there, which I was thinking it was going to take about 3, because we went in the hitting the rush hour traffic time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it wasn't so bad, but it did take us about
But
2
I would like
hours
to
to
go.
get there.
Anywhere near Atlanta is bad. You know what I mean?
I really do
Yes.
need to go. And speaking of which, I did put a post out on my Facebook page for those of my Facebook friends that they have at the High Museum, they have an exhibit from Nubia.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't really understand, what a wonderful place that Nubia is or was, and how it was covered by the Aswan Dam. And it's not Egypt. It's a little bit older than Egypt. It's where really some of the world's first people, civilized people, were. And so I kind of want to go to the High myself. So when you were talking about Afrocentricity, that's just like down my alley.
Right. Erica Woodford has an exhibit at the Tubman right now that those who can should
gosh.
go and see. It's
I've been working with her on that exhibit, not necessarily on the exhibit, but just doing some of the historical research, because I pull a lot from it. And I'm here to tell you that historically, people really don't know what was going on in Macon, but we have such a treasure that's right here in Macon. I'm going to give Erica Woodford, the Honorable Erica Woodford, a big shout out for courage, for going in and finding those books and scanning those books, and then taking those books and putting them online and loaning some of that information out to the Tubman so that everyone can see it. I was amazed. We're one of the few, and I do a lot of research, that you can go into that database, type in the name of your ancestor, and there may be a record of who owned them, how much money they were loaned out. It really baffled me. It was like they didn't need money back then, back in the a lot of those records in 1840. They didn't need money. They would just say, okay, I'm just going to put up Sally. And Sally put her up for $1,700. I'm going to take and put her up for this. I mean, it's really intense the way that they use, enslaved people as currency. So it was just really interesting. And I really hope that if you have time, take your children out there. I'm going to take Denver to see it. It's just really a good thing, and it's a great resource that we have here in Macon. For those, Macon didn't burn. So all those historical records are here. A lot of times they're not. You can't find them, but they done burn up the courthouse. They burn up the courthouse. They burn up the records. And I said I don't know who they is, but there he go right there again. But you got mail. Lord help him.
another one of the interesting dynamics is that when you find out how many, one of the great challenges within our race is that
Hey,
Tina.
there are some of us who walk around who know the knowledge that you just spoke of, And then there's the seemingly the other half who has no clue
He's right.
about it.
Mhm.
And so then when these two worlds clash within our own race, I think that lends for a lot of confusion that we have, because we got so many of our people that walk around knowing so many things and assume maybe that how could another African American person not know this, but we are assuming in a wrong manner. It's so many of us that have, like you say, it's like common knowledge that some of these things that we speak of, but there's so many other ones that don't have a
But you know what though,
clue.
Johnny, I would have to say that especially me, I don't mind working with people trying to help them connect, and I do help them connect. I don't mind it. But a lot of and we can go on to the day's topic, but I do want to say this. There's a lot of people out here in this community that have knowledge, but they hoard it. They're selfish with it. They will not share it. They prefer to just keep it to themselves, like, just I got it. I ain't gonna share it with nobody else because I got it.
Well, that's true, but my statement is more not how or why they don't have it. It's just the fact that there's a whole bunch of us walking around with it and a whole bunch of us not walking around with it, and we walk into each other and we clash, and we don't understand why we don't agree, why our vantage points are so different. It causes a lot of conflict within us.
Speaking of conflict, today's show, and Emily came up with this topic. Emily, what is, can you share that topic? Why millennials are not going what?
Oh, I said, why millennials are finding spiritual and religious gratification outside of the church. So I'll say that again. Why are millennials finding spiritual and religious gratification outside of the church?
That is a great topic.
Hey, Nate.
Hey, Nate, how you doing? I really like that topic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just not millennials that are finding gratification, spiritual growth outside of the church, especially since COVID. So COVID changed the dynamic for a lot of people.
Well, I noticed I noticed it really before COVID. COVID definitely did bring about a new wave, but I noticed before COVID, and it's interesting that my son's generation, which of course are the millennials, like they seem to be the furthest removed from organized religion, and I'm wondering why. Johnny, you're a PK kid. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that a lot of the 20-year-olds are starting to move away from organized religion? They're moving away from the church. They're moving and they're not, bad heathens or hellions. These are decent,
Some of
college
them,
students.
some of them.
Well, I mean, that goes without saying. I
No,
mean,
but
nobody's perfect.
Okay.
So I'm saying, generally speaking, obviously I'm not speaking every single millennial, but in a general sense, I've noticed that there's been a shift in them not attending church, and for multiple different reasons I've heard, but all very interesting. So I'm wondering, what is it, and why isn't church grasping the youth like it used to?
I think one of the things is that with our spiritual maturation, that people have started to understand that religion and church is not the answer. That the building, that type thing. I think that people are now understanding that the relationship with God is where the answer really is, and that you can have a relationship with God and not go into the church building, because our charge to keep is to be of service. So more people are connecting with the spirituality side, quote unquote, of what we've been raised on, instead of the traditional, you come every Sunday and you go to every meeting and all that. People have connected to developing relationships with God. And from that, they feel that directives push them in different routes now, instead of making sure that they're at every meeting to do this, to do that, or follow the command of people who, now that they understand more, are just people who are just people like them. People have started reading and showing themselves approved more.
Now, you're right, Johnny. That right there, I want to just stick a pin in that. What I found with millennials, and I see this even, in whatever it is I'm doing, you know, is that, millennials are agents of truth. I mean, they tend to be, you think they playing when they on that internet. I'm just not saying agents of truth.
Mm-hmm.
They're on that internet and they're looking and they're checking to see what you say is true.
Mm-hmm.
Is what I'm getting ready to say. So a lot of times, Johnny, you said
They
they
showed.
that's what I'm saying. I wanted to put opinion when you say study, they study.
Mhm.
They don't like.
Yeah, them millennials, they'll be sitting in church, and the minute that pastor say something, they just like this.
I think
They're
too.
cross referencing. They're checking. They're like,
I think another thing that is overlooked with our acknowledgement of the millennials, a lot of mothers like to make acknowledgement for the millennials in that fashion. But I think what the mothers also overlook is that most men of my generations figured out what the millennials are just now figuring out anyway.
Okay.
Because if you start
that's
looking,
interesting.
if you start looking at the churches, buildings, most of them over the last 30 years, they've been populated on Sundays by females.
All
So
right, that's
men
true.
have been
That's true.
have been aware of this for a long time. So a lot of them just go because they're like, well, you need to come and the man is saying, look, I can read my own Bible. I got my own connection with God. And so men have been criminalized. I can't think of the right word I want to say, but
You're right about that,
they've
Johnny.
been jumped on about
you're
not
right.
wanting to
You're
go
right.
and be within that process for a long time. So men were far ahead of millennials in that fashion.
Now I have to agree with you on that because it is a lot of feminine energy that's in the pulpit, and I don't understand that.
And the
part.
pews.
And the I didn't mean to say
No,
pulpit,
but that's true. It's
It's-
the pulpit and the pews.
but they're all there. And now a lot of men are actually over the church themselves, like pastors or whatever like that. But the majority of the membership is of women. And I think that's very interesting that you say that because there's a lot of emotionalism that's and the millennials ain't with it now.
They ain't.
They ain't with all of that there. They'll do a little bit.
And the men are not with it.
And,
We're
and
not.
I'm
We don't
raising
care
one.
how well he can sing. You
Right.
see what I'm saying? It's the females that have been for 30, 40 years been
Come
getting
on,
caught
come on,
up
come on.
with how child he can sing. And the men run around talking about, boy, Pastor Show can sing. So if you start really, if you take a honest look at what we're talking about, men have long figured this out.
And I don't think that men, and typically I'm talking about some of the real ones out there, y'all know what I mean. They see through a lot of stuff. And they're not going to put their money that they done worked hard for Reverend Chicken Wing and Pork Chop to live a certain kind of way. And
Now
he's
that
struggling.
But why do we think the
men still
millennials-
do tithe. So so what men do is they tithe anyway. And then they say, well, we'll let God because of their relationship with God. So then they'll tithe. They just don't go to the service. They'll tithe. They'll send their tithe money, give a $5 or whatever, however method they use. We'll still tithe, but that don't mean we're going to be involved with all that stuff, that we consider that stuff,
So why do you think the millennials are not though? Why do you? I'm raising a millennial right now, so they seem and him and I would say that Jimmy's a decent, human being.
Absolutely. He has a lot of morals and values and things like that. I give him credit.
He does. And a lot of the people that he associates with, his friends and stuff, and they seem, and these are his friends, so they're decent as well. I would say, decent,
right.
And they're just so far removed, and not that, they speak bad about the church or
They
anything.
don't.
They're just completely removed from
and by the way,
concept of organized religion. And I wonder where and how the shift happened. Reginald said for the most part, a lot of the millennials are overlooked and not put to work in the church like we were when I was younger. They don't feel included.
Well, I don't know. I just know for me, my revelation came, and I'm just saying I'm kind of like Johnny, but I'll just share this where I was spiritually abused. The pastor of this particular well-known church came to me and said some nonsense. and it just broke me. It broke my spirit. And he accused me of wanting to have a relationship with him. And I'm like, he looked like a toad. He was just ugly as I don't know what. He was horrible. He was a horrible little man. What made him think I want to be with him? But for whatever reason, he used me as a cloak because he was out there in the street doing whatever he was with other women, and he wanted to throw his wife off the scent. So I felt like, what, the God I serve surely wouldn't have anything to do with that. You know what I'm saying? And I know that God was not in that. And I began to dig deeper and look and study for myself. When I began to study for myself, I realized that a lot of the nonsense that he spoke was just dogma. And it wasn't God connected, it was religiosity. And I'm like, I love God with all my heart, soul, and mind. I really, 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 really do. But I don't mess with that church because some of the things that, and it may be to minimize chaos. Millennials is like, they ain't with all of that right there.
Because and I will say this: the last time I went, let's see, Raymond was playing. I cannot think, and I'm not gonna call the name of church even if I could think about it. But anyway, I've been to a couple, in the last several years, and I remember sitting. This was probably about maybe 10 years ago, maybe 8 or so years ago, and I remember sitting, and everybody around me was hooping and hollering and slaying in the spirit, whatever you want to call it. And I realized, like, I'm a thinker, right? And I like to think and I like to process. I listen.
Me too.
And I'm listening to what he's saying. And I was sitting there realizing, like, he's just repeating the same thing over and over and over. You're not even making any new points. You're just repeating the same thing. And I was like, okay, Emily, listen more intently, listen more purely. And so, but I could not focus because of the hoopla that was going on around me, the shouting, the screaming. The pastor couldn't get much out because every time he would get a word out, the organ, And so I'm saying this, and this is no disrespect on how people worship. I felt like I was in a 3-ring circus. And I said, how do people sit through this for 3 or 4 hours every Sunday? This is ridiculous. So I left out of there with the feeling of being empty, the feeling of, honestly, I just wasted 4 hours of my life for nothing.
Here's the trick of Satan. One of the tricks of him, because he's a very insidious operator.
I agree with you there.
And so what happens is, some, like the gathering that you described, maybe they were not based in God. But then there's another, you can walk up to another place and see what to the eye optically is the same exact movements, but the second place, they were truly in their praising God. They were about the truth of whatever they were jumping around and expressing. They were about the truth of it. And Group A looked identical to Group B, but Group A was just fronting. And so that's another one of the great tricks that Satan pulls. So then he'll make us discouraged with the whole process when it's like, it looks like just like the same thing, but it's really not the same thing, because these folks over here are really about, like my brother T.D. Brown says, to fit this, a calling to fulfill, to serve this present age, and my calling to fulfill. On that, they're on that path. And then there's a whole lot of other folks just purely show. A lot of folk would choose a certain type of choir director.
You better come on now.
Simply because they know it's a show and it's going to attract people. I see people stand up in the pulpit quite often and say out of their mouths, that person that is in that position to be the one to bring the message, and say out of their mouths, God gave me a message to give to you this morning.
Lord, yeah.
And then at the same mouth, at the same moment, will say, but I don't want to preach that today. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I don't want to run anybody off. So now, and the people sitting in the pew listen to this same person say that. So as soon as I'm sitting in the pew and say that, then I'm pretty much tuned out. Because you've just told me that God gave you a message last night, but you decided.
Come on now.
You decided that you might hurt some people's feelings. So you're not going to do what thus said the Lord. So right there, you lost me.
And let me just say, a lot of times the message is geared toward tithe and offering. Let me see, because I always say at the end, when they get that little hoop and that little holler, and this goes back to the millennials that's not going to really put up with that mess. You get a hoop and a holler, and then they start digging up people from I got a mother over there. You know what I'm saying? I got a father over there.
And they don't know where any of those people are.
And then those younger people are like, oh, let me get my phone. Let me just go here and just go on Facebook and see what it is, because they don't subscribe to that.
And again, a lot of us brothers didn't either. That's why the churches are so full of females.
It is emotion. And Johnny, until today, I really hadn't thought about it in terms of millennials and men are pretty much on the same level with that. Because that's true. Because the men are not.
All you got to do, go to any church, see who filling up the churches.
Well, you're.
I mean, I would agree. I mean, it's definitely more females. Well, let me ask you
like
this.
80% to 20.
Yeah, it's true. Let me ask you this: what do you? And this is probably a loaded. I'm gonna just ask because we're here to have the conversation.
That is correct.
What do you all feel about women in the pulpit? Because I have a few millennials that, well, my granddaddy said a woman ain't supposed to be, woman's supposed to stay silent in the church. Then I have, a lot of you say, I stopped going because my church got a woman up there. And so I'm like, and my thought process is, does it matter? But it seems to be, and this is, from the South, here in the South, I noticed that it is a big deal when it comes to women being pastors or prophetesses, or however they pronounce that. And, from Texas, and of course my grandfather was a, pastor, a preacher rather. And that's what they call him, in Texas, you're a preacher. And so it was extremely rare. I mean, my entire childhood, it was non-existent. I never saw a woman in the pulpit until I came to the South, till I moved to Georgia. Again, for me, I don't care one way or the other. It doesn't matter whether it's a man or a female up there. But I wondered, like, I've heard a lot of really religious or churchified people say that a woman is not supposed to be up there. So I wonder, what is the general consensus on that? And what is the issue with a female being considered is it prophetess,
and then in the position of leadership, and I think that's probably the bigger thing, is that there are some, when she's over the church,
and also, and let me say this, like, when you think about like these pastors' wives of the first lady, right? And the first lady has her own ministry. And she hosts these a day with the first lady, and she gets up and she speaks. And I'm like, well, what's the difference of her speaking to a group of church ladies at a women's conference, and her getting up in the pulpit on Sunday and preaching that same speech or sermon? So I'm disconnected when it comes to why it's a big deal, whether it's a male or a female.
I think that for us to come to that question, most of it is centered around the letter to the Church of Corinth from Paul. And I think that the interpretation of most people, that is the basis of that conversation. Some people took it literal that a woman's supposed to be quiet. Go over here and be quiet. And then other people did not take that interpretation from it. So I think a lot of the misunderstanding or the opinions that have been developed about that came from how people interpret the letter of Paul. So, but I personally, without referencing that, I do think that we cannot overlook the fact that as we have been taught and believe, that once sin was revealed, once we figured out we were naked, once we figured that out, then I think, for me personally, I never have thought that a woman might not be a carrier of the word of God, because God uses anybody to carry his word. But what I do think is she ought to, be dressed appropriate if she's going to get up there jumping up and down and think I ain't going to look at her.
See, there you
Now,
go.
I've never seen one that was. I will say that I've never
Yes,
seen
I
one
have.
that was dressed.
let
Well,
me-
let's address
No,
that. Now,
that-
I've never seen one that was just inappropriate. That's me.
Oh,
No,
I
what do
have.
you consider? What's
Well,
inappropriate?
let me just tell you, I'm
Should
gonna
she
say,
be covered?
let-
Like,
let-
should her
no,
neck,
no, no, no,
arms,
no, no, no.
legs, everything be
But let me
covered?
That's not what I'm
But now,
saying.
let me just tell you this that I've seen, and I'm gonna go back to I've seen them in very provocative clothes, booty dresses, and tight pants and things
Mhm.
like that. And I mean, they look
Really?
Like, oh yes, ma'am. Yes,
And
ma'am.
and booty dresses and the
And
and-
you
Yes,
and you
ma'am.
talk
Yes,
about and
ma'am.
talking about my shorts being over my knee. They up there. I'm like, why she got her dress
and
up
she
over
got
her knee?
she got a dress
Knowing
on.
we gonna look at her.
She got a
Oh,
dress
wow.
on, and she does have on her body shaper though with it, Johnny. It's not like jumping up and wiggling and stuff like that. But he is
Mhm.
absolutely
If your
correct.
chest is over proportion,
And then
you need to
got-
be careful what you
you
wear.
need to make sure
I'm
you have
looking.
on a jacket or something like that,
Mhm.
with it. But some of them is like dead sharp. They look like they about two shakes from the club. Now it ain't club wear, but it's very, 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 very fitted. And he is correct.
Mhm.
He is correct.
You
Wow.
ain't supposed to be looking at her. You supposed to be listening
Yeah,
to the word.
Okay.
I'm like, but come on, man. I'm a dude.
Here, dude.
Mhm.
John. Anthony says millennials cannot handle judgment. All right.
What do you say? Millennials cannot handle judgment. They're not built like we were. They don't like being made to feel guilty for their choices or actions, and ultimately, at their age, they have a much higher probability of being preyed upon by the leadership.
They really do. I just.
They're into emotions.
But you know what though, Johnny? The bottom. We're talking about about them being in the church. They really, and another piece of it is they really kind of they like to do what they want to do with their resources. So
Mhm.
you're not going to you ain't gonna have
They ain't tithing.
they ain't tithing, and they're not trying to buy their way into heaven, so to speak. It's just a different mentality. So really, it's about
They're more about what makes them feel right instead of what
Feel
is
good.
right.
Yeah.
Now-
They're a generation of feelings.
They are.
They're a generation of
Now-
let's talk about our feelings.
now I would say that within the church has lost a lot of, and it's just not millennials, but they've lost a lot of people. A lot of people not coming back simply because they're not buying into some of the buffoonery. I can't. Okay,
That's
I
that's
really
exactly
can't.
right.
I really can't, Johnny.
Mm-hmm.
You going out there, you sleeping with sister so and so or brother so and so, and then you come into church and then you say, "I'm really sorry and God forgive me," and I fall on
Wait a
my
minute,
knees.
did you say
What?
you going out there sleeping with sister so and so and brother so and so?
Well, because different one, because you have different people in leadership now. You just can't say it's one. You got to say
Oh,
both.
I
Right.
thought
We
you-
have to be inclusive
You have
now.
to be
I thought you were
inclusive.
speaking from a
And so I'm
predominantly
simply-
male
I'm simply
perspective
saying that-
from the pulpit.
No.
And they
No.
were sleeping
No,
with me
no.
I
And
stand
some-
corrected.
And some of the things that they're doing, and then they cry on their knees, Lord, I'm asking Jesus for forgiveness after I done jumped out the window butt naked running because the husband came home and caught me. Okay.
Or the wife.
Or the wife. And Johnny, I know some of these things are factual. I know what I'm telling. I'm just ain't calling no name.
Please don't.
I won't. Not today. I won't. Henry ain't gonna get me out of jail. He told me don't be over here running my mouth.
That's why you all should subscribe to the after the after show.
So I can tell it. But but I'm going to say millennials, even though, and let me just say this, it's interesting to me, this is just another twist, how millennials can judge the church, quote unquote, so hard, but they ain't hard on them rappers is out there living a lie.
Mm-hmm.
You follow what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Now they can hold Reverend Chicken Wing and Poke Chop and Neck Bone up to a standard, but they ain't holding up Lil Wayne and them.
Well, because let's be honest, because these rappers, even though you and I know the rappers probably, well, some of them ain't out there killing folks, they just rapping about it, they just talking about it, but from a millennial standpoint, they feel like the rappers are more honest. They're more,
Okay.
they're talking more of what's actually going on the street. So it's something that they can relate to, especially if you are, from the hood or from the projects and you see death and killing and shooting and gang violence every day. And here it is, as a rapper that's rapping about it. You can relate to it. It makes sense. So, they go into church and, they're talking about something like, I can't relate. Like, this is not connecting to me. So I think, that has a lot to do with it. Now, I do have one of my younger clients. She made a comment once and she said, I don't like the fact, and I'm not going to mention the church, but she said, I don't like the fact that I was going to this church one time, and I had gone about 2-3 times, and then I guess they wanted me to be a member, and they told me I needed to get in my income tax information. They wanted to know exactly how much money I was making, so I made sure I tied correctly. She said I ain't go back no more after that. So I thought about it. I said that's interesting that that a
And
church
seen.
would require, right, that a church would require you to provide your income tax documents so they can see exactly how much money you make, because they want to make sure you're tithing properly. And let's talk about that, because I think that is a gross invasion of my privacy.
What though? I'm not giving you my income tax.
Right.
I'm not going to do that. I just want to know whether or not Reverend Chicken Wang and Poke Chop, who ain't got no job, and his job is a church. And I'm gonna probably get in trouble for this. But there's a lot of pastors out there. Their full-time job is pastoring. Which I ain't got no problem with that. But you're not going to. I'm not going to give you my my W-2. And then not only that, back then, Johnny, did your dad? Did he have another job outside the church, or was he a full-time pastor?
No, my father worked at Armstrong for 33
I
years.
want to say it again now.
My father worked for Armstrong for 33 years, had a lawn service, and you might catch him washing cars.
And my grandfather worked multiple jobs. I mean, once he was retired, I think he was in his late 60s, early 70s. Once he was completely retired, all he did was pastor. But yeah, he had a job.
Now I'm gonna go back, and that's the difference between the old time pastors. You hear what I'm getting ready to say? I'm gonna go over, and the new pastors. Them old pastors had jobs outside of that. And they did not depend on the church to provide for them a certain lifestyle and living. They did not.
And that's why today's pastors clash so much with the deacons.
Come on,
because they got to make sure that, because I got a family to feed too. I got to take care of my first lady. Y'all know y'all want to looking good when y'all come in here. Y'all don't want to look in any kind of way. So I need a certain amount of money so I can provide for her and my kids and all that kind of stuff. But what I will say about the young people is that they don't challenge themselves. They do a whole lot of challenging of the generations before them, but they don't do a whole lot of challenging of themselves. They have different rules for themselves. Like they have all sorts of conferences and things with people on the front flyers and pages that they don't, and they know that these people are doing things that are contrary to the Bible. But they don't say a word about it because they into their feelings. Then all of a sudden they say, well, we ain't to judge nobody.
Right. That's my favorite.
When it comes to their generation, but when it comes to the generations before them, they feel like that generation is judging them. So then when it comes to theirs,
come on now.
Then the reason why they don't want to say anything against something that they know is wrong, they use the excuse of they validate it by saying, well, we were judged, so we ain't gonna judge them. And then they come to grips with the fact that their spirit is telling them, no, this is wrong right here. That within my group of people, this is wrong. And then some of them started saying, you know what, maybe the people weren't judging us, the older generation. Maybe they were not judging us. Maybe they were just telling us the right and wrong. And what we were doing is wrong, and we took it as judgment. And a lot of young kids in our hush, I can say, hey, young man, today's world. I can say, hey, young man, I ain't trying to be funny, but I can see your underwear. And his response would be, what you judging me for? I'm not judging you. I'm just saying I'm making an acknowledgement that I'm a guy. I don't need to see your underwear with your pants hanging down to your knee. And I'm saying to you, it's something I'm just saying, hey, sir, you mind putting your pants up? I don't want to look at your underwear. And his immediate response is, oh, you judging me. I'm not judging you.
Right.
But
well, Anthony said correct with I think what you were saying, Johnny. This era can easily be seen as the era of the lack of accountability.
Absolutely.
And then Faye says,
and these mamas is pampering them to death.
Faye said, I remember moving back to Georgia. The girls and I joined this church, and I will not name the church. He called me one night and told me it was a rainy night in Georgia, and I came across his mind and haven't been back since. And yes, I judge.
But you know what? And that's what church hurt. We may need to talk about that.
Faye,
Thing.
you're just so sexy. You know what I mean?
Faye, it must have been that little dress you had on.
I'm stuck on it. He called you and said
It's
a rainy
It's
night in
raining
Georgia.
night in Georgia.
Go
And
ahead
I'm a
on.
crank came across his mind.
Come on, and you know what?
I mean, that's church. That's church abuse. That's
right.
spiritual abuse.
You know, just like Pastor Gray. I think his name was what was his name? Gray.
Steve Johnny.
No. I don't know. Was it Terrence Gray? Anyway, the not that Gray. I'm talking about the other Gray to be on TV.
Great.
Yeah, the pastor who was showing his underwear and stuff to the lady used to send her all kind of little messages and things like that.
I never saw that show.
I'm telling you, he's been in trouble with his wife and things like that.
Because he on television showing his underwear.
No, he had affairs and numerous affairs, and then he.
I can't think. I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah.
What about Eddie Long?
Eddie Long like little boys.
I got several rocks.
And by the way, and people need to acknowledge, and one day we'll have to talk about black people. And I'm just talking. I know that white people. I ain't talking about.
I'm glad I'm brown.
But I'm just telling you, black, brown in this church, we keep right on turning our head when people do foolishness. Now I'm just saying,
absolutely.
I'm just saying, and you know that it's wrong.
It's according to who it is. Like if I know him real good, then I'll hey, that's my friend's son.
And my husband was in it. You know what? He said, so and so is a good guy. And I said, well, Henry, what about the victim? So I'm just telling you, millennials look at that. And a lot of things we don't know what some of these people have said to some of these millennials too. Mm-hmm. Especially some of these young women and young men, a lot of young men, and I said it right here, have been turned out in the church by some of them focus in there.
And I will say this
about that.
I think they can't be fooled so easily.
They cannot.
And I think because they have so much access to social media and the internet, and I always say they have knowledge literally at their fingertips now, what we didn't have. And so you can't tell no millennial no lie. You can't fool them anymore, because they gonna go straight to that phone and be like, it say right here that da 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 da.
It's a lot of millennials.
Different.
A lot of millennials too. A lot of guys. The ones that go to the barbershop and sit around with the guy.
Right.
Them the ones that really ain't up for that crap.
I believe it. And they look at it. And then the pastors, some of them are trying to figure out, well, how can we get them back into the church? I don't know how you're gonna get them back in the church, because they're not with that.
All right, now Faye, you done got a little personal there.
Well, she said, I can't sit and hear you preach the word without being a garden tool.
And by the way,
all right, clean it up then, Emily.
And by the way, and she ain't told nothing but the truth, because there's a lot of them out there to be doing stuff, and then the millennials see you doing it. Okay. And they said, well, Brenda, you drank wine. You say you do. I do. I say a couple bad words. I do. But I don't be up in the pulpit. I don't.
Yeah.
And I don't pretend to be anything other than who I am, which is Brenda Sutton-Williams. That's it. I don't try to pretend. But these children, these young people, if you want to attract them, you're going to attract them with truth and not with all the. You take Jamal Bryant. I'm gonna take him. Everybody knows Jamal's background, okay?
I know.
That's the guy from Atlanta.
That's got all them children and stuff like that.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, he out there. He was out there. But let me just go back and say, he don't deny what he struggles with. He is a hard worker. But I heard him out there one day. He said, I could have gotten a new car. He said, but I know that the people, it was right after COVID or something. But he said, I know the people in my church are struggling. I am not going to go out and buy that, knowing that my people are struggling. He got a used car.
And you see, that don't mean nothing to me.
No,
right?
Because that could be a ploy. They're gonna think so much more of me if
No.
I'm just telling you how I think.
But I didn't think of it being a ploy.
I didn't say it was. I'm just saying. Just because he did that, don't mean nothing.
I'm just saying that. And
nothing.
Listening to the context of it he was being. I would just say
that was a good publicity statement.
Well, he was out there trying to say, look, pastors, we need to stop fleecing the flock.
That's the way you look at it. I'm telling you the way I look at it.
By the way, and given all the other stuff that he's done up there too. Giving out food and paying all people's bills and doing the kind of work.
That's a lot. But see, now here's the thing. move in silence. See, it's a whole lot of people paying off folks' bill. It's a whole lot of people
Come on.
feeding the hungry, but they ain't up taking photo ops of it. And see, that's the way God moves. See, it is up to and what I've noticed is that we're to give him the glory. I pray all the time, dear God, you know what? I think now that I've evolved myself into a point in my life where I'm more responsible for managing things that you might avail to me. And I pray that he'll bless me in a I never really did, but I want a financial blessing simply so I can help more people. Because the more I move around in this place, on this place we call Earth, man, it is rough. And it is sad that we live in a country where so many got so much. And there's so many that ain't got nothing. And it's pitiful. And then when you start talking about people's story, it's so many people quick to say, well, they had the same opportunity I had. No, some people did not.
Right.
And we are too willing to accept that. Yeah, they had the same opportunity I had. I ain't got time to be giving them no dollar, no Sunday, begging for something to eat.
Right.
That is simply something that a certain group of folk wanted us to take into our spirit and start denying helping people, because the Bible says God blessed is a cheerful giver. And if you know that you got 5 drinks in your hand and this man looked, when you saw him before he said he was thirsty, he looked thirsty, and then you're gonna deny this man something to drink? Come on, man.
Well,
we have been taught now and groomed into a people to make us believe that everybody else, if I can get mine, you need to get yours. And that is simply not the way things are.
And I'm gonna go back to, I had a guy that, he asked me, he says, Brenda, why does God bless you? What is the only reason why God blesses you? And you know what it is? So you can be a blessing to somebody else. That's it. Plain and simple. That is the only reason why you're blessed, is to be a blessing to someone else. Does it mean that you allow people to take advantage of you? Absolutely not.
That's right.
But it does mean that you have an obligation to do that. And I'm just saying, I'm gonna go back to the topic. Millennials are not being a part of the organization simply because we are not practicing what we preach in that church. And regardless of what, and I'm just saying, folk may not like it, but it is entrenched in so much emotionalism will not get you a relationship with God. God is not emotion.
No.
You know what you were talking, Emily, you're very spiritual. But and me, I'm spiritual in that I'm quiet with it. You don't see me out there jumping and care. I don't do that. It's okay for those that do. But I'm like you. God is in the silence, and that's where He resides.
Yep.
He don't reside in a whole lot. Now, there's praise, and there are some people that it works with them. I prefer the quietness and the stillness of meditation. That's what I like.
Right.
Yeah.
And prayer.
And I think, to me, and this is just, me, I think that is when you are able to truly hear your higher self, when you're truly able to hear what one would call your higher self, or the voice of God, is when you are in the stillness. And this is, again, just me, when you're in the middle of the hoopla and the chaos and all of that, a lot of times subconsciously you play off of the energy of other people. And so in that moment, you're not hearing, you're playing off of the energy. That's and that true. Energy feeds you, right? So when you're at home in the early mornings or late in evenings, and you're in your meditation and you're in those moments of stillness, that is when you can sit back and listen, and you can actually hear, quote unquote, the voice of God. I do not think that what Christians say, he's not the author of chaos. Right. And so in the chaos and in the circus, to me, that is not of the Most High. I believe that He is, or when you're in that energy space, He overcomes you and He overwhelms you, and you can hear whatever it is He's trying to say to you or speak to you. So I don't, that type of energy doesn't resonate with me. It never has. I've never understood it. I remember going when I was younger, and I just was like, what is this? Like, why don't y'all sit down and hush? But I
Devil,
was too
let me hold
young.
my peace. What is this?
And I was young, so of course I couldn't say anything. But from a young age up until now,
and
I
and,
never
and I
understood it.
think praise is that's an interesting, is it noise, so to speak, or is it like inner acknowledgement and love of God that you have, and is it a vibration that you have? I mean, I think
It's different ways for
Is it
different
though?
people.
Yeah.
different ways, different people. I just know that for millennials, and I'm glad you brought up. And Johnny, I tell you, I really hadn't thought again about the relationship between millennials and men. While churches are talking about why can't we get more millennials, let
Some
me just
some
say,
millennials. We got to keep saying some because when you say
right.
millennials, you sound like all of them
Oh,
are on the same kind of path,
look,
and they are not.
Laverne, it's fine to shout and yell. Some people like that, and it's okay. But it's also okay for people to worship God in the silence. So I'm not talking about people who are
Yeah.
sincere, because you are very sincere in your worship and your praise. I know you, and I know how much you love God, and I know that you are a person who praise God, and that's what Johnny made an analogy with. There are some that are doing it and they're playing.
Yep.
So
And
what about the ones that Laverne is saying it's okay to yell at sporting events and other events.
mhm,
And I'm not saying it's not okay to quote unquote yell at church or whatever
mhm.
it is, but what about the churches where I was at a church and a dude sitting next to me just started foaming at the mouth. And then another woman started foaming at the mouth. And in my experience at that moment, I did not feel God. I did not feel a higher presence. I didn't feel the most high. I felt evil. I felt a weird energy.
And I bet you it
So
was.
much so to where it led me to get up and leave, try to leave out of the church. And when I tried to leave, I was actually stopped, literally
What?
stopped from leaving out of the church. Right. And so to this day, I still say, and I stand on this, that wasn't nothing holy about that experience. I
Hmm.
don't know what them folks was foaming at the mouth, but that wasn't of God.
Oh my God, Anthony, uh, being a Christian is a state of being, and so you are correct that they are about all of that, just that instant,
She's right. She's
that
right. That was a,
feeling. So it's and just like I think a lot of the confusion comes, which we don't have time, but the Bible clearly says that men can be
she's right.
pastors
Yeah.
Mhm,
and they
mhm.
can be evangelists and they can be preachers and ministers, because ministering is an act, pastoring is an act, preaching is an act, evangelizing is an act, but reverence is reserved for God. It is a state of being, and none of us can achieve reverence because no man is perfect. So reverence is reserved for God, and when men are attaching their names, or women calling themselves reverend this, reverend that, it makes the person in the pew that's on milk get a big misunderstanding and a high expectation of a human being that the human being will never be able to achieve, because we are not God. And so we sit back and we call people reverend, and then when they fail, we are so devastated because we expected reverence from a human being.
But
Anthony, he said this generation is defined by instant
instant gratification.
gratification.
He's
The
right.
Bible
Christianity
says
is
it.
not instant. The overall value is received when you die. While alive, you are held responsible every single day of your life.
A
The
state of
long
being.
game in general is not approved for this generation.
A state of being.
By
That's
the
what
way,
he's describing.
and by the way, and he's right, because it is instant gratification and they want it right now. But the other thing, and I just throw this out there, and I don't know how young people, look at it, but it's like you're living to die. To me, being saved and having a relationship with God, what is that is? What is that about? And it seems to me that when you have that connection with God, it should make you a better person.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, it's not this. You ask a person, why you say, well, I want to go to heaven when I die. What about why you here?
That's right.
You
See,
ought to want to be, you ought to be able to say that I'm so connected to God that it makes me a better person.
it's how you hear the music. See, a lot of people listen to music for how it makes them feel. A lot of people listen to the music for whether or not you're playing the right notes. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's where a lot of the big difference is in the conflict with the same people who are sitting on the same pew
Hmm,
in the
hmm.
same building, because this person is satisfied with how the doggone music makes them feel. and the other person sitting there going, "No, that's the wrong note."
But you know, and so I
All right, we got 30 seconds left.
Thank you guys. It was a great conversation. Thank you, Emily. That was a great topic.
They locked me out the door. Emily did today.
Emily,
Okay.
it didn't matter lock you out the door.
Just one.
Bless his heart. We got to give him a cookie later
And
to make him feel better.
And they made me feel funny because they were talking about my knees today. I'm like,
they said Johnny done preach.
Johnny, you done preached today. Okay, you guys, we love you. Please join us. Share this this broadcast. We'll be back here next Monday at 5:30 p.m. Like, share, comment, subscribe. All of a sudden, we love you guys, and we're out.
and I don't want your 10%. I just want you to go out and serve and help somebody. Just go out and help somebody as you pass along.
You've been listening to All of a Sudden. Join them every Monday evening from 5:30 to 6:30. All of a Sudden with your host, Brenda Sutton. That's every Monday. We'll see you there.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of the Glory 980 AM, the Glory Media Group, LLC, WDDO AM, its staff, management, or advertisers, but are the views and opinions of the participants of the broadcast.
Connecting the